Hello children, welcome once again to my YouTube channel. Today let's read a new lesson from your NCERT English textbook, Honeycomb. Lesson number 6, Expert Detectives. Before you read, Nishad, a boy of 7th, also called 7th because his name means the 7th note on the musical scale, and his 10-year-old sister Maya are very curious about one Mr. Nath. Then one day the children's marble rolls into Mr. Nath's room and Nishad gets a chance to see him. Is he a crook on the run? Why is his face badly scar? Why has he no friends? Nishad's mother, a doctor, knows Mr. Nath as a patient who is very polite. Now the lesson. Expert Detectives, Part 1. As we walk back towards the clinic, 7 said, "He doesn't look anything like a monster, Maya. But did you see how thin he is? Maybe he's very poor and can't afford to eat." "He can't be poor if he is a crook on the run," I told him. "He's probably got millions of rupees stashed away somewhere in that room." Yes, stashed away meaning hidden away. "Do you really think he's a criminal, Maya? He doesn't look like one." Nishad looked doubtful. "Of course he is one, 7th, I said. And he certainly isn't starving. Mr. Mehta told us that Ramesh brings his meals up from the restaurant downstairs." "But Maya, Mr. Mehta told us he doesn't work anywhere. So how can he possibly have money to pay for food?" Nishad said. "Exactly," I exclaimed. "He must have lots of money hidden somewhere, maybe in that trunk in his room. It's probably full of silver and gold and jewels and—" "What rubbish!" Nishad interrupted. "I know I'm right, stupid," I told him. "By the way, 7th, did you see his scars? I couldn't. It was too dark, but I bet he got them during a shootout with the police or something." "Mummy told us quite clearly they were burned scars," Nishad said firmly. "Perhaps the police had to set his house on fire to force him out," I suggested. 7 looked unsure. On the Monday following Mama's birthday, 7 went along with her to the clinic at Girgaon. As I was spending the evening with a school friend, when they returned, Nishad told me he had been to see Mr. Nath, and I felt most annoyed that I hadn't been there. 7 had been quite upset about Mr. Nath's gown's appearance and was sure that he was starving. He told me that he had knocked loudly on Mr. Nath's door that evening and said, "Open the door quickly, Mr. Nath." The man had opened it and asked him, "Lost another marble?" He had obviously recognized my brother. "No," said Nishad. He had taken the man's hand in his own and thrust a bar of chocolate into it. "Did you get a chance to peek into the trunk, 7th? I asked. Nishad looked disappointed. "He didn't even ask me in," he said. Then he smiled. "But I did find out something, Maya. I went down to the restaurant where Ramesh works and talked to him." "Good for you, Mr. Detective," I said, patting him on the back. "I hope you questioned him properly." 7 looked pleased. Ramesh told me that he takes 2 meals for Mr. Nath every morning and evening and 2 cups of tea, one in the morning and one in the afternoon. Ramesh says he is not very particular about what he eats. It's always the same food, 2 chapatis, some dal and a vegetable. Mr. Nath pays cash and tips well. Ramesh told me something very strange. Maya, 7 added. Almost every Sunday he carries 2 lunches to Mr. Nath's room, and the same man is with him each time. He's tall, fair, stout, and wears spectacles. Ramesh says his visitor talks a lot, unlike Mr. Nath, who hardly speaks. Well then, Nishad, I told him, now that we have made some progress with our inquiries, we will have to sort out all the facts like expert detectives so that we can trap the crook. How you do go on, Maya, 7 shy. How can you possibly imagine he is a crook? He looks so ordinary. Criminals can look quite ordinary, smarty, I retorted. Did you see the picture of the Hyderabadi housebreaker in the papers yesterday? He looked like any man on the street. Nishad looked doubtful. The monsoons broke the next day, dark clouds accompanied by blinding flashes of lightning and roaring rolls of thunder burst with all their fury, flooding the streets with a heavy downpour. School was to have reopened after the summer holidays, but no traffic could move through the flooded roads, and there was an unexpected holiday. I thought I would spend the time usefully. I sat at my desk in our bedroom with a sheet of paper before me. Comprehension check. What did Nishad give Mr. Nath? Why? What is strange about Mr. Nath's Sundays? Why did Nishad and Maya get a holiday? What did Nishad give Mr. Nath? And why? Nishad gave a bar of chocolate to Mr. Nath because he wanted to befriend him. What is strange about Mr. Nath's Sundays? Every Sunday a stranger visits Mr. Nath, and nobody knew why he visits Mr. Nath. Why did Nishad and Maya get a holiday? Nishad and Maya got a holiday due to the unexpected heavy rain which blocked the traffic. Now let's move on to the next part, part 2. I wrote in large block letters, catching a crook, expert detectives, Nishad and Maya Pandit, by appointment to the whole world. By appointment to means officially chosen by someone important. Then I began writing. About half an hour later, I turned towards Seven, who was lying on his tummy, chin cupped in his palm, reading comics. Want to hear what I have written? I asked. He looked up questioningly. I have listed all the facts we know about Mr. Nath, which might help us to trap him, I said. Want to hear? Seven nodded. Fact number 1. I read. His name is Mr. Nath. We must discover his first name. Do you think that's his real name, Maya? Nishad asked. Probably not, I said. Most crooks have an alias, meaning an alternate name. I added a big question mark after Nath. Fact number 2, I read on. The tenants at Shankar House say he's mad, strange and unfriendly. Fact number 3. He doesn't talk to anyone is mannerless. But he did talk to us, Maya and Mama says. He's very polite. Nishad interrupted. He only talked to us because he had to, I said. And since he was under Mama's medical treatment, he had to be polite. Fact number 4. He doesn't receive any letters. 7 nodded. Number 5. He's been living in room 10 of Sankar house for more than a year, I continued. Number 6. He doesn't work and sits in his room all day. Number 7. The kids in Sankar house and even some of the grown-ups are scared of him. Number 8. He has no visitors except for a spectacle, fair, fat man who visits him on Sundays for lunch. Number 9. Food and tea are taken to his room by Ramesh from the restaurant downstairs. He doesn't care what he eats, pays his bill immediately and tips well. That ends my list. Have I forgotten anything, 7? Nishad had obviously not been paying too much attention to my list of facts. All he could say was, poor man, Maya, he must be so lonely if he doesn't have any friends. How can a crook have friends, idiot? I almost shouted. At least he has one friend, the one who meets him on Sundays, said Nishad. A brilliant thought occurred to me just then. That man must be Mr. Nath's accomplice in crime, I said. Maybe he keeps all the loot and he comes now and then to give part of it to his partner, Mr. Nath, for expenses. That's it, I'm sure I'm right. Accomplice meaning a helper in crime. If you insist on calling him a criminal, I don't think I want to discuss anything with you, Maya, said Nishad angrily. He can't be such a bad man if he gives Ramesh such generous tips. Ramesh probably knows something about his past, so Mr. Nath must be braving him to keep quiet, I said. Nishad glared at me with his arms tightly crossed across his chest. I was beginning to get fed up with him. How can we make any progress with our investigations if you take that attitude, 7th? I asked. I'll cooperate only if you give up this idea about him being an escape crook, said 7th. You really make me angry. I almost hit him. I make you angry, you stupid oaf, I shouted. You make me mad. What is the point of all these inquiries if he's not a crook? If you think he's nobody, what's the idea of bothering about him? Please tell me. Nishad looked thoughtful. I would like to find out why he's so thin and why he's so lonely. I want to know why he doesn't have any friends and lives alone. Try to understand, 7. I told him. If he has lived in Sankar house for a year and hasn't met a single friend, there's something wrong. He is obviously scared that someone will recognize him and give him up to the cops. Maybe no one's tried to make friends with him, Nishad protested. Why should anyone bother? You have seen what a nasty bear he is, I said. I don't care, said Nishad stubbornly. I like him and I'm going to try and be his friend. Friends with a crook, huh? You're crazy, 7, I said. The cops will take you to jail with him. Do you want that to happen, you idiot? Nishad merely glared at me and quietly walked out of the room. My theories seemed to have made no impression on him at all. Sharda Dwivedi from the Broken Flute. Walking with the text. Let's just have a look. What does Nishad find out about Mr. Nath from Ramesh? Arrange the information as suggested below. What he eats, when he eats, what he drinks, and when how he pays. Ramesh told Nishad that Mr. Nath takes 2 meals in a day, one in the morning and one in the evening. He always eats 2 chapatis, some dal and a vegetable. He drinks 2 cups of tea, one in the morning and the other one in the afternoon. He pays cash and tips well. Why does Maya think Mr. Nath is a crook? Who does she say the Sunday visitor is? Maya thinks Mr. Nath is a crook because of his strange ways, strange nature, and the scars on his face. She thinks that his Sunday visitor is his accomplice in the crimes. Does Nishad agree with Maya about Mr. Nath? How does he feel about him? No, Nishad does not agree with Maya that Mr. Nath is a crook. He is sympathetic towards him and believes him to be an innocent man who is poor and can't afford to eat. Working with the language. The word tip has only 3 letters but many meanings. Match the word with its meanings below. Fingertips. Okay. Fingertips, it matches with the ends of one's finger. The tip of your nose, the pointed end of your nose. Tip the water out of the bucket. Empty the bucket by tilting it. Have something on the tip of your tongue. Be about to say something. Tip the boat over. Make the boat overturn. Tip him a rupee. Give a rupee to him. The tip of the bed. The end of the bed. The police were tipped off. The police were told or warned. Warn. If you take my tip, if you take this advice. Roman number 10. The bat tipped the ball. The bat lightly touched the ball. That's it. See, the words helper, companion, partners, and accomplice have very similar meanings, but each word is typically used in certain phrases. Can you fill in the blanks below with the most commonly used words? A dictionary may help you. Okay. Example. Business. You can write partner. My dash should be filled with companion. My companion on the journey. Next, I am mother's little helper. Number 4, a faithful companion such as a dog. Number 5, the thief's accomplice. Number 6, find a good partner. 7, tennis, golf, bridge partner. Again. X. His accomplice in his criminal activities. Now let us look at the uses of the word break. Match the word with its meaning below. Try to find at least 3 other ways in which to use the word. The storm broke. This kind of weather ended. Daybreak, the beginning of daylight. His voice is beginning to break, changing as he grows up. Her voice broke and she cried, could not speak, was too sad to speak. The heat wave broke. It began or burst into activity. Broke the bad news, gently told someone the bad news. Break a strike, end it by making the workers submit. Speaking. Play detectives with each other. Find a person in your class or some other acquaintance to speak to. Find out the answers to the question given below. Be careful to ask your questions in a polite and inoffensive way. Do not force the person to answer you. Then allow the person to ask you the same questions. Name. What newspapers or magazine does the person read? How long has the person lived at the current address? What does she/he do during the day? That is the daily routine. What do neighbors and friends say about the persons? Who are his/her visitors and what are his/her eating habits? You can ask a few others about this. What do you think about the person? These students can try at home. Writing. Who do you think Mr. Nath is? Write a paragraph or two about him. See, Mr. Nath is a poor man. That is what Nishad thinks, okay, according to Nishad. And either you can choose Nishad's opinion about Mr. Nath or Maya's opinion about Mr. Nath. Either way, you can write a paragraph or two about him. You can write taking Maya's or Nishad's sides. Either way. I think Mr. Nath is poor old man who has been shunned by his extended family after the death of his wife. He's probably surviving on the money he gets as his pension. He also seems to be a simple man, as evident from his way of life. He probably wants to befriend people but doesn't do so as his scars on his face. He prefers staying alone and living his life in an ordinary manner. The strange visitors who visit him every Sunday might be his son, who simply visits him out of moral obligation. This saddens Mr. Nath even more and makes him feel miserable. Like this. Moving on to the next question. What else do you think Nishad and Maya will find out about him? How? Will they ever be friends? Think about these questions and write a paragraph or two to continue the story. Nishad and Maya will try to find out about Mr. Nath's identity. Maya will try in all possible ways to expose him as a criminal. She will try to find out his real name, his background, and about his mysterious Sunday visitor. She won't waste any time in bringing in the police if Mr. Nath is found guilty. Nishad, the servant, on the other hand, believes that Mr. Nath is simply sick and lonely. He will meet him in more friendly manners to find out about his history. If Nishad's convictions were proven true, he will help him in every way possible. Moving on to the next question. Conducting a survey. Have you ever conducted a survey? Say yes, no, or I don't know. Yes, no, or I don't know. Study the following questionnaires and discuss the point in small groups. A home is a place where you feel secure and happy. You can be alone, you can give all your things, you can bring up a family, you can invite friends, relatives. You can make a noise if you want to, you can do whatever you like. You are at peace. You can look after your parents, you received and give love. Step 2. Collect information, contact people in school, your locality and put these questions to them. Tick mark their answers and the relevant column. Step 3. Analyze the results in the group by asking how many people think that a home is a place where you feel secure and happy. How many people think that a home isn't a place where you feel secure and happy? How many people don't know about it? Step 4. Present a brief oral report on the results of your survey. Use phrases such as the following. Most people think that. Few people think that. Hardly anyone thinks that. No one thinks that. Students should try to do this yourself. And here's one sample. You can write like this. If you use the first phrase, most people think that, you can continue like this. Most people think that home is a happy place where we feel secure, stay safe, invite friends and relatives and can look after our parents. Few people think that home is insecure and lonely. There is hardly anyone who thinks that home is a noisy place. Perhaps no one thinks that he/she can do without home. Now let's summarize the whole chapter. Let's have a quick summary of the lesson. The story Expert Detective is about two siblings, two children. Okay, Nishad, Alice 7th, Maya, a girl. They considered themselves to be expert detectives. They were curious about the man named Mr. Nath. This man had been living in room number 10 of Shankar Guest's house for more than a year. Mr. Nath had no friends. According to his neighbors, he was a man of strange nature. Maya, therefore, believed that he was a crook. She also took him for a crook because of the scars on his face. Mr. Nath had strange burnt marks on his face. Maya believed that these scars were caused when police had set his house on fire to force him out. Nishad, however, had a different opinion about Mr. Nath. He believed that Mr. Nath was sick and poor. The scars on his face were due to some tragedy or accident in which he had lost his family. He wanted to help the friendless Mr. Nath, believing in his innocence. To prove their points, the children planned to investigate about Mr. Nath. Nishad went to meet Ramesh, who used to take meals for Mr. Nath every day. Ramesh informed him that Mr. Nath was not very particular about his food. He would take the same meal twice every day. Every Sunday, a tall, stout, spectacled man would come to visit him. This mysterious man talked a lot. When Nishad informed his findings to Maya, she suggested that this mysterious visitor could be Mr. Nath's accomplice in crime. Both the children were curious about Mr. Nath's real nature. Nishad was more sympathetic and was curious why Mr. Nath lived alone and had no friends. He formulated a plan to make friends with him. Maya, who was almost certain that Mr. Nath was a crook, planned to investigate the matter further to prove her claims. Till the end of the story, they could not find out whether Mr. Nath was a lonely man or a criminal or a rock.